Are you ready to go then?
I'm ready to go.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. We are doing it again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Get Reelisms podcast episode 107. I am one of your hosts, Adam Chase Rennie.
And I'm also one of your hosts, Christine Chen.
Go ahead and introduce our guest. Go ahead.
Yes, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Casanova. I am a longtime friend of Christine's, and we also work together on several film projects. I'm very honored to be here with you and Christine and Adam today. Hey.
Hey, yay.
What's going on, y'all? Hell yeah, dude.
This week has been a take it back. What was it? Reunion of sorts, just seeing old friends and everything in Austin. So it's been really nice. I didn't realize how long I haven't been in Austin. It's been a year with you.
It's been a year.
But I
also wanted to say, when she meant seeing old friends, she meant seeing young people who have long time been her friends.
I like that clarification. This is correct.
Yeah.
She means young people that she hasn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
That is true. Although when I saw Daryl and Diana played Ari and Ursula. She just had a baby and we're all like, man, we're getting old. So yes, young people who have known each other for a while. That's the definition. That is what we mean. Yes. So yeah, so Adam, Michelle was before your time. In terms of Adam came a lot later. But Michelle and I started when I started Moth to Flame. We went to business school together at the University of Texas.
Right.
And Michelle has always wanted to be a filmmaker, and we started doing a lot of marketing content for the MBA and University of Texas and everything. So
okay,
yeah.
shoot.
And so describe how those experiences were. Like, please. Remember the carts and stuff that we had? And
it was a cold and stormy night. It was not, but it felt that way. I went to the executive MBA program at Macombs, and Christine was in the full-time program. So my classes were in the basement of the AT&T Executive Center. So it was not bright and sunny, but we met because I'd come up with an idea and I needed some content from India, and Christine was heading over with her class to do some filming for the school. And she picked up some footage for me. Before I met Christine, I actually did make films. I made indie films with a lesbian-themed indie short films. And the first film I made was called Perspective, based on a true story. And
love the title.
I got into filmmaking because the AGLIF, the Austin Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, had opened. I think it was in 2002, their season, and I was looking at the offerings for lesbians, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, I got to make a film because I can't do worse than this. I can't. And I like that perspective, not to be punny, but I like that perspective because how do you know what best is going to be? I only know I couldn't do worse. And so as a special treat, I have with me today the little sticky note as I sat at the table of California Pizza Kitchen, telling my girlfriend, who she had just started business school, so she wasn't listening to me. I said, I'm going to make my own film, and I originally was going to call it Purse-Toting Lesbian, but then I changed it to Perspective. And it was actually, for somebody who had never made films before, a pretty good first film. I knew enough to not write narrative for it. And instead I had a custom soundtrack where the different characters and then the purse itself that's in the film has its own musical instrument. And I was really set on whenever the purse was on camera, that the harp would be playing. And so I met a girl who had a camera. We seriously went from this little piece of paper, made this film, and it turned out, it changed my life, because it didn't matter if I'd ever donated a kidney or gone to the moon or anything like that. I was, all of a sudden, I'd made a film. I was now the filmmaker, Michelle Casanova. And all my friends were introducing me that way. So I entered it in contest. It showed in a few film festivals in Texas, and then it went to show in Washington, D.C., and then in Provincetown, Massachusetts. So I thought I better take a quick class to learn what I'm doing.
Right.
Keep doing it. But all the while I was making films, my goal was business school. It just was.
How many days did it take you to shoot your film?
It actually, my first film is about 10 minutes. And it, even though I didn't write narrative for it or script, I had like a project management plan for it. So I'd say that the first film probably did not take us more than 5 days. And in that first film, all my friends were in it, because in the first film, there are no heads. There are just the torsos of people and the purse. It's at the level of the purse, because the story is about interminority oppression. And based on a true event, when I first moved to Austin, I'd gone on a blind date with this woman who took me to this lesbian house party. And it was summer. I was wearing a dress and I was carrying a very generic, I think it was the Liz Claiborne Dr. Bag purse, nothing that had a personality. And everyone that was at the party were wearing khaki shorts or pants and a solid color button-up shirt, short sleeve or long sleeve, in either blue or white.
So you stood out.
I stood out. And when I walked in, the people that were sitting got up and moved over to the table. It was like my purse was offending them. They felt like, what? Why are you carrying a purse? Why are you carrying a purse? Are you trying to further? Let's see. I know this is nothing to sneeze at, Christine. It's a serious story.
Disrespectful. I mean,
but we're tight, so we're good. They were like, are you trying to further the patriarchal society? And I said, I'm carrying a purse because I have shit in it. I have my stuff. I've got Kleenex, I've got my wallet, keys, I'm wearing a dress.
More practicality than fashion. Yeah.
And I said, my socialization is this way. My mom carried a purse, it's not, I'm making a statement. And the only three things that whole group talked about, I couldn't relate to. No, after they wouldn't talk about the purse after they stopped talking about it. They talked about Taos, New Mexico, herb gardening, and riding bicycles, but not cycling, just riding bicycles. And I remember thinking that was so, in general in life, I've not been oppressed like that. It's always been the lesbian group that seemed to oppress me more because I carried a purse or I didn't have a certain hairstyle. And so when I sat about to make my movie, I thought, well, I'm going to make it based on that experience. And so we did that. So in the movie, there are no heads. It's at the perspective of the purse. And the only time you see heads are at the very end of the movie, where the woman, the main character who's carrying the purse, she accidentally left it at a bar, and a woman who'd been watching her sees her leave it and runs the purse out to her. And as they each grab a side of the handle, the camera pans up to their faces and they find each other. And that's how it ends. From a project management perspective, it came out exactly like I imagined it. And my girlfriend, who was in business school at the time and working full time, she saw me coming and going, but she wasn't really, keeping up with the process. And I said, listen, we finished the film, we just need to add the sound. So I think you should watch it. And she watched it twice a day for 30 days. She couldn't believe, I said I was going to do it. I wrote about it and then did it. And I liked it. I liked it because I like project management, and I liked it. But I didn't expect any success from it, but my film did win an award through the AGLIF, Austin Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. They did a contest for first-time filmmakers. And so it did win an award for best use of accessories. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I went on from there. I made a couple of other films, and then I got into business school. And I put the filmmaking on my resume for business school and got in. And then I met Christine, and now we're wildly famous individuals with very good education.
But it was interesting that you said it because it was sort of the same perspective for Christine. Not that I'm trying to speak for you, but like you had the idea of like, well, you like project management. So the idea of entering the filmmaking world with the business mindset, sort of, you sort of like been like, that's kind of like half the battle of producing, I feel like, you know what I mean? So you already like were the producer before like even, putting together. I mean, you have the idea, you have the script idea and whatnot on a sticky note, but then like it sort of formed into your business practice, essentially.
It did.
And it was like
Christine
your
and I
own
talked
version of
about
business
that.
school.
It,
in a
it
way.
was.
Yeah.
And until you get into business school, and I was telling Christine, yesterday, that a lot of the things I learned about making films, one, managing people, because after that
Right.
foreseen success of the first film, when I went on to make the second film, I actually got real actors. And it was a weird feeling because my friends were like, well, can I be in your film? Can I be in your film?
Mhm.
But all of a sudden and unintentionally, I had become somebody whose film had been seen in Washington, D.C. by a very global audience. And I couldn't just keep making films with my friends in it. It was a weird realization, like, especially since I hadn't charted a trajectory of what my film career was going to look like. And so then I started working with real actors, and you do have to have contingency plan because someone always will be sick on that day that's really needed for a scene, or you've got and when I started making films, the literal equipment was very different. It was on the cusp before theaters could even show a DVD. They were still showing reel to reel, and it was like within
Was this
a
early
year.
2000s then?
Yes.
Wow.
My first film
That's
came out in
crazy.
2004, and we'd been
Interesting.
I had a
Okay.
DP who he would bring like 3 or 4 giant tubs of equipment, and he did Steadicam, and he had a hitch Steadicam on his car. So I
Mhm.
mean, it would take a while to assemble the lights and get all the equipment together. And we were filming on cards and but the old time cards and on a tape.
Is it the mini DV tape?
Yes. The mini
Yeah, I
DV
filmed
tape.
those with those for my documentaries.
And you film with both in case you miss and in case something goes wrong with one or the other, so that you have a backup. And I needed a shot of the produce section of one of the grocery stores I shot at, and I only had it on the tape file. So I went to go rent the conversion a piece of equipment, and they said, we don't have that anymore. The industry's changing and no one's using it. So you're going to have to just stick the tape in your camera
Hook a wire
and hook a
Yep.
wire and
Capture.
extract it that way.
Yep.
So it was like, I didn't know enough to foresee the evolving future of software.
Right.
But that's when I started making films. So by the time Christine and I were filming, everything fit into 2 backpacks and a couple of tripod carrying cases. I mean, we filmed extensive stuff. We did green screen filming too. And even
Right.
then, it wasn't as much equipment as it used to be.
It's funny because you bring up equipment and I feel so disconnected from it, but you're right. Back then it was mini DVs. When I made my doc, I remember that at that point, it was the first time that HD cameras were starting to become smaller.
Yeah.
And I took one of the first smaller HD cameras to China to do a documentary. This was in 2006 in China. And I ran into another documentary filmmaker simply because they were amazed by the size of my camera. And his name is Rocco Bellic. He is an Academy Award nominated documentary filmmaker.
Really?
When
I
I
didn't
met
know
him,
that.
I had no clue. It looked like a
Wow.
hippie. He was like, we were in a cafe. He goes, hey, can I look at your camera? He's like, I'm a filmmaker as well. I'm not going to run away with it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I just never seen such a small camera that does HD. And so I looked at it and he gave us a card. And then my friend, who's Joe Kent, who's an MSNBC anchor now, she was like, we should look him up. And she looks him up. He was like, oh my God, he's nominated for an Academy Award for his documentary Genghis Blues, if you go and look it up. And what was crazier was, okay, cool, nominated, whatever. Then that was when The Dark Knight, what's the first Batman for Christopher Nolan? Was it The Dark Knight?
It was Batman Begins. That
Batman
was 2006.
Yes.
Yeah.
Batman Begins comes out, and
Yeah.
I fell in love with it. And I was like,
Yeah.
who the F directed this? I look it up, and it's Christopher Nolan. And of course, I look up the Wikipedia. I don't think it's there anymore because I think they took it out. But the first two lines said, Christopher Nolan and Rocco Bellic grouped together in Chicago and made films together.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
God.
holy shit. I go and email Rocco, and I was like, Christopher Nolan? He's like, yeah, like we grew up together. And
That's crazy.
So Inception, the second Batman, on the Blu-ray special, there is an additional section where there's a documentary. And in Inception is a documentary about dreams, and in Batman it was the Batmobile. Both of them are by Christopher. Both of them are by Rocco Bellic. I just emailed him a few days ago, actually, because I met somebody else who was like, this Genghis Blues is about throat singing, which is super obscure, and I told him to watch that and message Rocco and stuff like that. But it was just serendipitous. But it's the same thing. It's like you just don't know where your paths are gonna go, and like I didn't think that I would meet another filmmaker randomly at business school. It was after we graduated too, right?
No, it was right before we graduated in like 2011. But we graduated the same year on the same stage, but our individual classes walked separately. And Christine got an award. What was your award?
It was like a dean's award.
A dean award for
the highest esteemed honor in college. Gotcha. No worries. Yeah, we'll just move past that. Crazy.
And so it was interesting that we were both in business school, even though we had like this common film path. And then
we didn't know about.
We didn't know about. We only met because even though I was in the basement of the AT&T Executive Education Center and Christine was walking the campus above ground, we had a mutual connection who introduced us. He said, hey, do you know Christine? And I said, no. And so it was through him that we ever met. And then after I graduated, I took a few months off work, and Christine asked if I wanted to work with her. We had some space in an incubator for business school students who were working on startups. And that was really cool because it was like having a captive audience. Anybody who needed some video for their product or services, we did some filming for that, or when people got married. I know that I filmed 2 weddings of my friends, and Christine, we filmed some weddings.
We will film some weddings, yeah.
And then we did I want to talk about how paths cross. We were across the street from the no longer there Dog and Duck pub.
Yeah.
And
I passed it yesterday.
Yeah, we walked across the street to get some lunch, and we're standing in line, and I hear these 2 women in front of me talking about, oh, well, we really need to get some videographers to come and, make some promotional media for McCombs. And I tapped one on the back, and I'm like, excuse me, like my head right between them. Excuse me, did I hear you say that you needed this? And I whipped out a card. I said, Christine and I are McCombs alums.
And we make films.
We do filming. So give us a call.
Not a big deal. It's all good. Yeah.
I know.
That's dope.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of Moth the Flame. Like the first few years of it was making content for the business school. We did all sorts of stuff. We were there almost every single day.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But our niche in that was, sometimes content can be dry when you're doing that type of filming, but I sold it as we went to business school.
So we know what's
important, and we know what these people who don't know how to be filmed, we know what they're saying. We can make that interpretation and do the right edit to get the point across. And so they didn't even have a contract template when they hired us. So I wrote one up, and then they started using that. And we had several contracts with the university. And then that just led to some of our business school friends asking us to do stuff. We ended up doing a commercial for Girl Scouts.
Yeah, Girl Scouts. We did one. Favor was something I found really cool because they're huge now. Favor, Yeah. So we did
you
their first,
really?
very, very first concept commercial.
Holy
Very
shit.
first. Yeah. So it's cool. And then I also did the concept commercial for Beatbox Beverages, which did well on Shark Tank. And Mark Cuban invested in it, and now it's a boxed wine. It was labeled as boxed wine, but it's like mixed drinks basically. So,
okay.
so it's just interesting because all these like startups. Oh, here's another really big one that also exploded. So when I made this commercial, the company was called Urban Dish. It's renamed now as Dish Society, and it's a fast casual dining place. It's huge now in Houston. There's they've opened several of them, airlines. Yeah, I don't know. He was in my class before us, but it's just neat to be we were at the forefront of all these startups that were happening, and some of them did actually survive and become bigger, and we were part of that world.
When it was just a tiny thing,
making content for them simply because of our proximity and our luck of being in this startup incubator. And how I got the startup incubator was yet another funny thing. My friend needed a commercial also from business school, and he couldn't pay us. And he was like, well, I could get you into this incubator. You can get free office space. I was like, hell yeah. And it was only supposed to be a few months, and it ended up being a year or two.
Yeah. It was a while.
And that's also why I created Fun Employment, because I was in this free startup space, and I was like, oh, I have this whole space about, and I was really deep in the startup world, and I wrote Fun Employment with a friend because I wanted to show what is it like to be in startups. And so then Fun Employment was born, and
which was why you had access to locations and that big building,
yes,
in
which
the beginning.
is right across from Clay Pit. I saw it yesterday.
Oh, for real? Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's right across from Clay Pit, 1616 15th Street.
Is the building still there?
It's still there.
Oh, yeah,
Except it's weird because now there's a metro rail thing in front. You can't park in front of it. And I remember it when you could park in front of that building for free, anywhere downtown for free.
And the rail goes through there now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And we also did the first time that Circuit of the Americas.
Oh, yes.
Was so huge.
The first time when Coda came to Austin, we were the first content creators for F1 in Austin,
doing live transmit.
Yeah.
From we coordinated groups of people from the racetrack to downtown.
Yes.
And then on that weekend too, there were a lot of bands coming in,
right.
Who is the guy that sings?
Nelly was there, Enrique Iglesias.
And then it was just craziness. And we also
now it's huge. It's like a venue.
And we were there at the very beginning.
At the very, very beginning.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
It is nuts. And we also, because we went to business school, they were doing an angel investors meeting on campus. And it was the engineers from McLaren, Mercedes, and I don't remember the third car, but it was Mercedes.
We got
and
access.
We filmed.
Oh my God.
Shoot all that stuff.
And I'm a geek for knowledge. So I'm like, yeah, it looks pretty sterile, but just learning about how the engineering that goes into producing these high performance cars also leads to other uses for those same types of materials, like for bicycles, really light bicycles or medical equipment. It was really interesting. And so then years later, but I am still very young, but years later after that, I took a course at MIT in data analytics, and it was based on data analytics and its use in the sports industry. And it was a global class. And so one guy said that he really enjoyed Circuit of the Americas, and he asked me about it. And I was able to say,
we filmed
we filmed the very first Coda. We had,
so
teams.
nuts.
Yeah, it was like crazy.
I didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah,
I was like, it was as if there was a whole media team for South by Southwest. That's essentially how big it was.
Right.
So I organized, I think we had 10 to 12 teams basically. Patrick Hoare. We had a bunch of filmmakers that would go to these different free events and stuff like that. We had passes, we had a bunch of special passes. So we got into all the like the concerts and stuff for free up front. You know, we were filming just a bunch of content for F1.
It was pretty
like
crazy.
that just like skyrocketed y'all for like all sorts of networking like,
it was super random. It was
opportunities.
That, and then then we worked for Nike,
Adele,
for Adele, some big brands.
Come on, Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
And it was really weird because like I wish that I loved that process, but it's also one of those things where it's like I got those big brands when I didn't know what I was doing too. So there is something about like when you grow and you're not where level wise you should be, you can alienate some of those, you know, that you can never, like, I don't know. I don't know if I will work for Nike or stuff for a while, unless like they see me in a different capacity as just a director, because at that level, our production value was not to the par of what we can do now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we
it
were
makes sense.
hard. We had I had no clue what I was doing. And we were like working for Nike. But I feel like that was also their strategy. Like they found like little budding production companies that could take advantage
of strategy. And
because
years before that, I had done some work for Coca-Cola through the very large advertising company, Saatchi & Saatchi out of New York. And they were looking for regional people. They were big. So they were just spending their money in a more regional way. And so I ended up producing events that represented Coca-Cola, Minute Maid, Swatch Dive Watch. You know, when I think about my true film career, I've actually been filming since the 1980s. When I was 5, I think.
That's so
weird. Yeah, it was kind of weird. And my content was being distributed among, audiences. But I wasn't thinking about it because I wasn't thinking about filmmaking. You know, you fall into it. But the big plus of business school, and they tell you this, is you go to a good business school for the networking in addition to the education. It's almost parallel value. And it really was for Christina and I, because of the location. We just happened to go to Dog and Duck. I just happened to be eavesdropping in a positive, legal way. And I had a business card. And then we ended up making, I found myself in positions at UT, considering my class was in the basement. I did a filming piece where I'm standing on, in the stadium on the grass where all of the football action takes place, filming, and instructing very high tenured professors. All right, wave now. It was just like, I can't even believe it. It's like, whoever thinks that you're going to be on the green in the stadium, or you're going to be by Big Bertha, the legendary drum, or that you're going to have access that you do.
Yeah, that we're filming the F1. Like I look back and I'm like, we had no clue.
It was the first time
we just fell in it, and we're like, sure. We just said yes. That was what we were good at. We said yes. We said yes.
Saying yes to everything. But that in and of itself was an education. And even from the time when we started doing that filming, there were some technology changes. Lights changed, because I remember I was filming. I did some filming using the old-fashioned lights that were hot,
the hot ones, the cans.
The
really?
lights
and stuff. Yeah. So now everything's like LED panels and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
That happened like overnight, because that's how film technology works. And then one of my business school classmates, he went on to sells high-end microphones and speakers and dead cats and covers. And he calls me all the time. I get free stuff from him to use, tripods, different microphone covers, because he sells globally for indie filmmakers. He started up his own company, and I found it really interesting because he's like a marketing renaissance kind of raconteur gentleman. I did some amazing photographs of him that just really make him look super great. And, it's just interesting, the connections that you make and how it just furthers. Like now I've got like some really cool sound equipment stuff that I didn't have before. And then I parlayed some of that to, I got a regular job too. I work for the city of Austin. And so I was able to create a podcast for one of the departments that I worked for, and they'd never had one before, which was interesting because I'm working with people that are very diverse in age and generation. And so taking that back to work where I can parallel a lot of my experiences, I went ahead and wrote and produced and directed the first podcast for them. And I created it because they had a lot of people who didn't sit at a desk. They were out in the field. And in a locked down podcast, they could get the content that they needed to stay current, but they didn't have to make extra time to go log into a computer to see it.
Right.
And so it's been a really nice marriage of having the experience with doing the filming and, working with Christine as really, I don't know, it's almost like.
It's weird because you're one of the few people that actually have seen where I started.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people know me from maybe when I started doing shorts and stuff, like actual legit shorts. I went to festivals, but Michelle has known me when I hadn't made any of that stuff, and I started Moth the Flame. She knew before I started it. When I have a business card that's on my McCombs business card, and I crossed out the email address and wrote my website on there because I just started the website, type thing. And I can't remember what the Apple version of making a website was, but that's how I made my website.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It wasn't the first floor. It was still probably like, like in Being John Malkovich, there's that weird floor he's on. It's kind of in between two floors and it's not where you can fully stand up. It was in that kind of a space that Christine and I met. And then it just flourished and we were saying yes to everything and then finding ways to do it. And fortunately had access to some really talented local, camera guys and editors who
we're still friends with.
We're still friends with them and have gone on to be very accomplished in their own right. And I've spent hours with strangers in rooms. I'm no longer strangers with them, but Christine would be like, we got to edit this. And so every night I'd be with the same, editor it was almost like riding a tandem bicycle. They would sit and be, editing, and I would be right behind them saying, all right, now do the B cam and do this. And it, filmmaking is very intimate that way, and that you work in close proximity, and it's almost like finding really good dance partners too. And that's the thing about when Christine and I met, we were just starting this. We had to, find our rhythm and then just dance through it and come up with some innovative techniques because that's, we were under contract to do some of this work. Right. And then Christine, went on to make more shorts and then features, and now moved to Los Angeles. But it's been
has a successful film career. No, not a big deal. It's all good.
I know. Well, but and we've talked about like what does success even mean? Some people measure success by being very rich, but in today's world with big tech, being very rich in a world where you can lose billions overnight doesn't seem to be the best measure anymore. It's kind of like, what's your goal? What's your objective? And how close do you get to it in your time
Not since
frame?
crypto is a thing. Yeah.
Right.
I have to do a shout out. So while we were doing the podcast, old friend of both of ours has been texting me, David Lackey.
Oh, David Lackey. Shout out to David Lackey.
Yeah. So David Lackey was one of the first people we worked with from camera perspective. He is one of the first camera people I met, and one of the first people I did meet in the film industry when I was here in Austin. So that was when I started to produce student shorts while I was in business school to get connections into the film school, basically. And David Lackey was on a set. He was operating the Steadicam, and we've been friends ever since. I actually saw him yesterday. So it's kind of funny. And then the set that I'm on, so I'm here right now in Austin, Texas. I'm actually on set in Waco, but I get sometimes weekends off, and I was off this weekend. So I came down to see Michelle and some other friends. And yeah, I forgot where I was going to go with that, but so many people. Oh, now I remember that feature that I'm on. The director photographer is Alex Walker, also one of the very first people that I met in Austin who did 3 or 4 of my short films, and I continue to work with as well. So it's just fun seeing how these dots connect.
Mhm.
We weren't looking for that. That's what was crazy, is that like we knew that we wanted to make films, and we knew that we enjoyed working together, but then we could to go from like you and getting the job in line, us making so many films for UT because of that one connection, to going to do the first F1 big
The
gig.
inaugural F1
Yeah,
weekend.
literally the first
The
one.
very first
Yeah.
one. Mhm.
And then all this other stuff is just weird that like life has taken us where it has. So, and we're still friends.
Yeah,
Yes.
we are still friends.
Yes.
Well, because it bonds you in an interesting way. You know, people think that filmmaking is very sexy, but it's also a lot of waiting. Like you're waiting
Yeah.
on people.
It's
You're
more of
waiting
that.
on setup, or you're waiting on people. And so the business school sent Christine and I to Houston a few times and Dallas a few times to film for their professional MBA programs in those cities. And so we would sit and wait and wait and wait until in between classes. And then we would have a schedule of who we were going to, be filming.
Interviewing,
And
yeah.
I'd be hunting around for where the light was going to be best at that time of day in that building. And so you get to know people. You're thrown like, I met David Lackey because Christine set him up as the camera guy while I was doing the
Interviews.
doing the interviews at a UT shot. And
because I was on a different gig.
yeah,
so
she was on a different gig. And so I hadn't met him, but I'm just going to say, and we were talking about David before this podcast. He had the biggest umbrella I've ever seen. He always showed up prepared, because there were times he and I worked and we had to go between buildings on UT and it was raining. And he was almost like the kind of size of an umbrella on a patio table.
Yeah.
And so we were like lugging our equipment, but we were dry, and he would bring all different color tapes, and he would bring Downy wrinkle release, things that are very practical. And I'm very practical about filming, because I want to get people in there. I want to talk them up, get them comfortable, while your dance partner is like setting up the camera and helping you with the lighting. And a lot of times you've only got so much time to be in a location. So your margin of error is very small, and you have to learn really quickly how to work with that person. And I enjoyed that aspect because, how do you in an office, there's all types of personalities at work too, but when you're looking at your common goal, it was really neat to have those paths crossed.
Yeah.
Sure.
And one of the editors I worked with, Christine met him,
James.
James Couch. He's like doing extremely well.
Extremely well. He cut like a really big feature that
He worked on a lot of features.
Yeah.
I met him at a food trailer to do a handoff of some video.
He was my
footage.
mentee.
And then I ended up being at his apartment all the time. And I told Christine, she'd stopped by to drop something off. I said, I'm living with him now, so just come here, because I'd been there like every night that week editing. And you just meet all different types of people, and it helps broaden your horizons, and just you learn from them too. I'd be like, oh my God, you're doing great. That's amazing. Especially when you're at the point of you're on set filming, and then when you see what an editor's done with that footage, and all the ugly horror of the filming part of it, that's when you've got a good editor, because they take that horror and they make it into something that looks really good. And I would just look at James like, oh my gosh, you are a magician. This is amazing. And it was just neat to be with all different types of people. And even in almost in a contained environment, because we were also working on deadlines, and we had clients. We were working for clients, and so meeting with the clients, and that just led to more and more options for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a big thing that struck with me when I've been chatting with you is that you said, even though I don't do film as much these days, I'm always a filmmaker. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I do. The last short film I made was back in 2010. I had a feeling I was going to get into business school that year, so I wanted to go ahead and get another film made before I started school. And the 3 films I've made, I've debuted them at Austin Film Studios in their showing room, and I've had little parties, and my parents were there. And even though I haven't filmed anything literally in a while, when I tell my girlfriend, it's like, well, I tell people I do filming, and my girlfriend said, but you haven't done filming in a long time. The reality of when you do filming is, if you've ever done it, it's always in you. I can't see a movie anymore the way I used to before filming, because whenever I watch any film, I'm learning from it, or I'm like, boy, that editor really had some say on that, because I can tell how much was cut out of it.
Right.
Or, it's almost like a busman's holiday. It's like I see 3 layers deep into the film. It's not just for enjoyment anymore. And I think once you've done filmmaking, it's always in you, even if I'm not actively doing it. I've helped Christine on, some writing stuff, and did some editing work on the book, Get Reelisms. And
that's why Michelle's name is in it. She helped edit the first versions of Reelisms.
But it's, I've gone on, and I still have all my camera equipment, and I still have my sound equipment, and it's not like I'm going to give any of that up, because I still come up with different scripts and different things like that. But once you've ever done film, it just stays with you. I don't think, because we had such a really fast meteoric rise of business, those experiences feel like 2 weeks ago.
It does definitely feel like we were just on campus not too long ago.
It was on campus.
It was back to back to back. We're filming there all the time.
I want to say that went on for about almost 3 years.
That's, that was our primary lifeline, was, at least for me, because that was how I stayed afloat, was these projects with the University of Texas.
But I want to also say this really interesting thing happened. So we are saying yes to all these projects and committing to them. And then Christine finds this most ingenious thing ever. You hooked up with a film trade school, and they wanted their students to have hands-on experience, like an internship. So they were paying.
The film connection, you mean?
The film connection.
Yeah, that's what I did. So that's how I met Christine.
And so then we got talented, interested people that were paying into Moth to Flame, to assist us in some of this filming.
And they were learning.
They were learning a lot. They were learning sound. They were learning personal, interpersonal skills and personal relations. And I think that was a really nice collaboration to do that. It was like small business helping small business. And I think that was really smart.
That's how Adam and I met. So Adam was my mentee.
So Adam, if that hadn't happened, you'd probably just be kicking back watching a sports game right now.
For sure. No, Christine taught me everything. And Christine was the one who, and I didn't really think much about it, like in the middle of just like being a PA on my first set, she was like, you really like art department. And I'm like, well, I like the props, and I like how everything's set, and like, you can just move the furniture, everything has to like make sense and within frame and stuff, and then make sure continuity works in between shots. And then she was just like, yeah, you like art department, you're gonna work art department. And then like I just sort of just got myself into it. And then Kellie Penna, who is a production designer,
we know Kellie very well,
friend of the podcast, great buddies, and she took me under her wing for art department and got me gigs. And then Christine, on top of that, got me those connections to get on those gigs and stuff like that. So I attest everything to Christine. She got me into it, and I couldn't, of course, like I've gone as far to say like I've been so grateful, but it's like it's way more than that. It's like it's more than grateful. It's just like like you said, without Christine, I probably wouldn't have gotten to the place that I'm in now. Probably wouldn't even have a podcast, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And she was like, no, let's do all of it. Let's do it all. You do the thing that you want to do. And she broadened my horizons with that. And I gotten into connections with people who I never thought I'd get connection with, because pre-2018, I had no idea what I was going to do. And then, and I moved from California over here, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do this film connection thing. But like, man, I'm getting too old. I'm getting this, I'm getting that. And like, this is too late for me. There's no way. And then I met Christine, and it was just like, it was like a skyrocket into the stratosphere for filmmaking.
I like the story with how, because I never thought that our meeting was like the way that you described it, but it makes me laugh. Because you're right.
Well, it was stressful.
I was in between two productions when I met you.
Yeah.
And I had like 30 minutes to meet. The impression he does is really funny.
Because it was such a stressful meeting. It was like, because I didn't know who she was, right? I mean, we talked on the phone and stuff. And actually, I'll say this too. I talked about this on a set one time. Our first phone call. I don't know if you remember this, but I was I basically, like, the advisor or the counselor or whoever the fuck from the Film Connection reached out and was like, okay, here's Christine Chen's number, and she. No, they gave me the wrong name. They said, this is Christina's Chen's number. Go ahead and call up Christina. And I was like, okay, cool. So I called her up. I'm like, hi, is this Christina? And immediately she's like, you got the wrong number. And then like was about to hang up. I'm like, wait. I think this is the right number. Do you work for Film Connection? She was like, oh, are you the mentee? And I'm like, yeah, I'm Adam. She's like, oh, okay. Hey, how's it going? And then we set up a meeting. And I was just a barista at the time, and I was working too. I was in the back room trying to like unclog like syrup bottles, and I was just like on the phone with her, and I was like, "Yeah, I can have a meeting with you, sure, tomorrow, yeah, absolutely." And then literally the next day, and I almost got fired too that day. It was crazy, but I went to that meeting, and it was so stressful because like I got there. And she was saying like how we met was totally fine, but the meeting was less than 5 minutes. Like I barely got to know her. I didn't know what she really like. She told me like she produced, she directs, she writes, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I wanted to know more about it. She's like, hey, I have a set that I'm going to be working on. Would you want to come and do a PA thing with me? I'm like, what's a PA? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're saying. And okay.
You're like, great.
And so I just
like 2 days later, basically. I can't remember. It was like a
few days later. And I worked on the set, and I worked even through my birthday too. And I had the best time of my life. And
was that which one was that? Was that 6
That
words?
was Writer's Block. And it was infamously one of the worst sets for Christine, and for everyone else. But for me, it was like magical. So
it was a hard set.
It was a hard set.
I brought you on to didn't I bring you on to a short first?
No. Shit, you got me. Yeah, you got me into a feature, and it was tough, but it was like probably one of the greatest like experiences that I've had, because it like the low moments were like teachable moments. Right. You know what I mean? Like all the mistakes that I made, it was like all teachable moments, where usually like whenever I make a mistake, and I worked retail for 10 years as a manager, every single mistake that I made is like detrimental to the business. So every single time I made a mistake, I thought I was like, oh, this is the end of my world. And then I quickly realized that like, oh no, mistakes always happen all the time, not just me. So you learn to compromise, and you learn to work around it, and you learn to adapt. And Christine taught me that tenfold. There's not really like, there's never like such a change that Christine couldn't handle. You know what I mean? And that gave me like insane inspiration to just understand that like, oh yeah, no, you're going to have problems. Like that's just the way it is. But how you react to those problems, how you work through those problems, that's the difference. And if you can't hang with that, then this shit might not be for you, you know? And you quickly learn to adapt. And those days sometimes were horrendous, but like, again, I
It was
loved
cold. I have a
it. It was
picture
cold.
of Adam sitting right next to Kelly was out Evan. Maybe it was Evan.
Evan,
who was
yeah,
shooting, and then
key grip, yeah.
key grip, and then who else was sitting? But they were like
There was
wrapped up in this like
Miss
blanket.
Shay, who was
Shay was on it.
makeup.
Yeah, makeup. They were like wrapped in this blanket because it was really cold, and we were
Yeah.
where in Texas were we?
It was
middle of nowhere.
Blanco.
Blanco.
Yeah,
That was it.
Blanco.
Blanco, Texas. I didn't realize that was their first one.
Yeah, it
Oh, I
was.
really roped you into some deep shit. Yeah, that was the one. Alex Walker worked on that, so that's really funny how this is all kind of the dots are all weirdly connected.
And I worked with Alex several times since.
Yeah.
He will never remember me, but I'm kidding.
But I think that's the beauty of film is like you said, it's you meet the most random people and you become friends with people that you may never have been friends with if you weren't in the film industry.
Yeah.
It's weird. You're just on set and you're in an environment that's a pressure cooker and you sink or swim and you got to rely on people. You become their husbands or wives for that period of time. Yeah. Yeah. So like Carly, I hung out with her yesterday and she's my work wife.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we also had a nostalgic moment. She was like, yeah, she said, we had worked on one set apparently where she was not the AD, she was the producer. She said she had no clue what she was doing. And I was like, I felt like she knew enough basically from my experience with her. And then there was a short film and they didn't have a budget for anything except the first. And I was like, I need a second. And so I said, could I bring a second if they did it for free? And so I asked Carly, but then it ended up Carly had to first for one day that she'd never done before because I got double booked for another gig. So I was like, all right, you're going to be a first for like one day. You'll be fine. And she was like, oh God. And then like a few weeks after that, I get a call from Louisiana gig. And this is when I did the 3 features on John Schneider Studios back to back to back for a summer. And I called her. I was like, hey, are you doing anything for the next 3 months?
Yeah.
Well, you kind of have to leave, not tomorrow, but the day after. Are you in? And she said yes. And it's
fuck it. Yeah.
Then we've not stopped working together for a very long time. And that's how it goes.
And that's the other thing. It is how it goes. But that's the other thing too, is that like all the people who Christine has gotten into like filmmaking and stuff have all for the most part been like super rad and super amazing to work with and
we've all
sweet people.
Work in it, unless
we learn to work with each other. Like you mentioned Carly, you mentioned so many other people, like they are all
we're all
rad people. And I love working with them. Like that's the other part of it too. It's like when your parents are just like, okay, we're gonna invite the neighbor's kids and who you never met, and you're just like, oh, God damn it, I have to learn new people now. Shit. I'm like, oh God, all right. And then but you discover that like, oh no, they're like cool, chill people. They love the shit that you do. They want to learn and when a stressful situation happens, it doesn't like get them, shaken as some people probably do. But like they are like amazing people who I still work with. For sure.
So Michelle knew Kelly before you met Kelly.
Yeah, I was actually in the incubator room. The very first time Kelly ever showed up to meet Christine.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the way Kelly I met was through business school, actually.
Right.
One of my business school friends, Carlos, is friends with her husband's brother. And her husband's brother, I guess, had figured out that Kelly wanted to do something in film. And they asked me, would I want an intern or something? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? And Kelly shows up and
I was in the room. I was there at that moment.
Kelly.
Yeah.
And she had got out of school for like graphic design or something like that. And again, threw her in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
She worked with cameras, she worked with everything, and
Yeah, she did, because I did a lot of shoots with Kelly. And I want to say that first, I want to say a shout out to all baristas out there. That is a hard job.
yeah.
You are
It-
making people drinks, people that wait in their cars in line for many, many minutes to have that drink. So shout out to all baristas.
I was a barista for 3 years, and I can attest
know,
to it's.
But I can saying it's
brutal.
It's an important job.
I'm
being a
gonna
barista.
grab a charger because my phone just died.
Yeah.
So
So
Go ahead.
I'll talk. Wait, Christine, leave that here. So what I like to also say, and to talk about what you were saying, Adam, is you meet people. It's almost like mystery date. Christine would tell me,
Yeah.
you're going to be working with so-and-so today, but he's pretty cool. And he's a guy, and he'll probably be wearing pants. He'll be
Yeah.
a guy wearing pants.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that narrows it down to everybody.
Uh-huh.
And then I would end up working with, just random people. And most people, this is what I really liked about it. Unlike an office setting, when you're working on a set, you've got designated roles. Like, if you're going to be the camera guy or you doing something, what you're doing for the most part. And so I don't have to tell that person, because they know how to hook the wires up. They know how to hook the camera. They know what I'm doing when I'm laving somebody up. And so it was more seamless, and I didn't have to have awkward silence with them, because we were there to do a job. And I liked that. And then from there, the relationships grew, because like with Kelly, that incubator experience, it was like the size of a large walk-in closet, and it had just this glass door. And when people walked past the glass door, walk into the room through the glass door, it was like a transporter. Because it's like this morning, I can remember how I'm sitting next to Christine, and Kelly comes in, doe-eyed, and just, we're all stuffed in this little box with a window, and there's equipment and a table. But just what a great, spirit she had to come in and meet a bunch of strangers. And Kelly and I did a lot of work we filmed a wedding together. We did several McCombs interviews together. And then again, you're waiting. And so there's a lot of time there. But, and we did a theme wedding together. So I think kind of dress in the Gatsby-esque style, so we didn't stick out like a sore thumb. But it is really interesting, the relationships that you make. And I think it's really good. And I wish more people had those experiences, because it teaches you how to just get along with a wide variety of people, and how to not be so shy, or how to not be so intimidated. And Christine and I talked about this too. Sometimes when you do a film project, or you make a film, it might not be the best film. It might not be anything like what you imagined it to be, but what it will totally be is a learning experience. You will learn, hey, next time, let's bring bug spray in August for the wedding we're going to shoot. Because
that was literally my first shoot. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, bring bug spray. Or, hey, when you negotiate that contract, try to negotiate a cart, because, we were still moving stuff around, or a parking passes, or, hey, we need to bring a power strip, because we've got to be charging all these batteries. Or we did a green screen project for McCombs, and we told people not to wear green. But one girl, it was so funny, because I showed up later than Christine, and they were actually filming, and I'm looking through the window on the door, and I can see that there's a girl wearing a green shirt in front of green screen. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to fix that part.
Yeah.
But it's always a learning experience. And it's always, we've had to work around sirens, planes, everything. And you just figure, next time, I think what we should do is this, or next time, most filmmakers always talk about the next time, because they've learned something on the set that they were on. Or, hey, we're going to need to bring so-and-so on, because if we're going to have to do this, they're going to be the best one. And also the thing that I think changed when we started out filming is we did sound check or sound stuff and colorization locally. but then you were able to start sending it through over the internet.
Yeah, what she's saying that like when we were starting up, so many things that we were doing were all in-house by ourselves because we didn't have any money we had to keep everything in order to survive. So we did everything ourselves. But then as we were growing as a company, we could start to send out sound mixing to other people or coloring to other people and stuff like that. So I mean, it's neat because you've been through the natural growth of a business. So
Yeah.
Michelle's seen that.
Right.
Side.
And I don't think you used to be able to send big files over internet, but then that became something that was possible. And
with Google Drive now. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many, I really can't tell you how many large external hard drives I have because
so many
because if you shoot to camera, and then I would sit for hours labeling all the footage to hand off to the editor, but one thing that I think has been very beneficial to Christine is she can do all of the tasks of filmmaking herself. So when you were describing how you met her, and I was thinking this because when I look at outtakes of me as a director, I sound like a dick. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm like, how can I sound that way? And so I always apologize to people up front. I'm sorry now, just in case. I won't ever spit or cuss, but I can sound really direct.
Right.
And I think sometimes directors, they just have a sense about people, and they're like, hey, I'm going to give you a chance. I don't need to know anything about you any more than you're a man wearing pants, and just come to the set and I'll get you a gig and you can work on it and learn. And I think that's, because Christine has the ability to fix a lot of things because she can do camera work, can do sound, can do editing. So yeah, I mean, she really opened my eyes up. And when I first met with her and said, I want to get some of my own equipment, I mean, she made a list of what I needed to get. And I went out and bought that, a monopod, a tripod, the different lenses, a scrim, just stuff that you need just to do basic filming. And we just went along with that. Yeah, it's been nothing but learning. And that's the thing about filmmaking, because it's a dynamic environment. You're always going to see things change. You're going to, now what's really big is streaming television. And now the streaming services are competing for the Oscars with the movies that they produce. It's not just the big studios anymore. So, I don't think that you can ever be too old to get into this type of work.
No. Yeah.
Because if you've got sensibility and you've got a vision and you've got a story and you can learn, if you can't learn to do the camera work, you can find someone who can do it, because that's
Correct.
what I used to do. I had a DP work on my films, but then I started doing camera work when things changed. You can make your own, films. You can use a phone these days to do it. It is so different than my DP bringing 3 or 4 giant tubs of equipment, because now you can wear a camera on your head and make a film.
Right.
Which is, in less than 20 years, that evolution in equipment has happened. I just want to shout out to people who are listening to this, that if you have a dream or a vision about making a film, write it down. I mean, literally, I did on a partial 3-inch sticky note, because there's a list of groceries on one side and I wrote it on the back side. So if you can just write down and then think it through and then recruit people who can help you to put it together, there's always somebody who's, interested to learn it. Christine, do I have time to talk about a really interesting connection that I made?
Do it.
So in my third film, Fresh Rosemary, I bought music, and I had taken a 12-week course, a film crash course with Kat Candler, who's gone on to become a mega showrunner and had a very successful feature film called Hellraiser, Hellion, excuse me. And after that, it covered like your basic stuff. But when I was buying music, I didn't know how to do that. The internet was only so evolved at that time. And that was in 2009. And what I had learned already is, if you're going to buy music, you should start your negotiations with that first, because that's going to take longer than any other part of the process forever and ever. And I was really set on a piece of music that I had heard on a K-Tel album, K-Tel, K-Tel, which was a company from, I don't know, maybe the 70s. They were the first company who would take like hits of the 70s and put all the top 10 hits on one CD to where you didn't have to buy one artist's album. So I called the company and I got a very nice woman who was assisting me named Samantha Keeves. And I was corresponding with her. I ended up buying a piece of music from Whitesnake, which was,
Ooh.
Wow.
yeah, I bought.
How much was
Throwback.
that?
I'm going to tell you.
Uh-oh.
First of all, if you're standing up, sit down, because when you buy music for a film, you have to buy two pieces of it. You buy the licensing, and then you
And the
also buy the
synchronization, right?
authorization.
Yeah.
And you usually have to go through a broker. And so I wanted the version of this one song, Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes, from that Edison Lighthouse had sung. And so that's why I called K-Tel. And then she hooked me up. I had to go to K-Tel UK. So she hooked me up with the UK because the writers of that piece of music were in the UK. And then also Dave Coverdale from Whitesnake, who I bought that piece of music through Warner Music in the UK. Now I'm just, I'm not famous. I wasn't super wasn't famous then. The actual authors or writers of the Fresh Rosemary song, My Love Grows Where My Rosemary Goes, wrote to me directly. And they said, we have a version of this song that we didn't release, and we'd like you to hear it. And we would let you use it if you want to. And it, my sister was 16 years older than me. And so that song came out more in her time. And by that point, she'd already passed away. And I just remember thinking, this is the writer of a song that became so popular. Wow. They had to create a faux band named Edison Lighthouse to sing it on TV and in concerts, because back then they were just using studio singers to make music, but it became a really big hit. And then when Dave Coverdale himself had to sign off on me buying the 54 seconds of Slow and Easy that I purchased for the film, and you buy music by the second. And so it was $4 a second. And that was back in 2008. $4 a second. And then they make you fill out a list of all the music, even royalty-free music, and where
music cue sheet.
Yeah, it's a whole music cue sheet. I mean, I didn't learn that part in my 12-week crash course of filmmaking. So the fact that I did it is craziness. So I get my pieces of music. I also get my letter of being accepted to business school. So it was about 2 weeks before I was able to get back to Samantha Keeves. And I was telling my girlfriend at the time, I said, that woman's been so nice to me. I'd really like to send her a nice note. And Samantha had actually called me because I told her, sorry, I've been kind of dropped off the face. I got into business school and had to attend to some stuff. And so she called me and said, I wanted to call and congratulate you, because I know she went to, I believe it was Kellogg.
Oh,
Yeah, she got an MBA at Kellogg. She goes, I went to a school, a program like what you're getting into. It's not an easy feat, so I wanted to congratulate you.
Wow.
So then after that, I look up who she is. She is the daughter of the founder of K-Tel. On the website, she's got pictures of her with all the major singers you could ever think of.
wow.
You were speaking to the tops. Yeah.
I'm speaking to I thought it was a customer service person.
Yeah.
And then I'm already like freaking
awesome.
out because my sister hated everybody, but she loved Dave Coverdale's hair. So it made me really sad. I couldn't tell her, hey, Dave Coverdale, whose hair you like, is letting me use 54 seconds for $4 a second. But, again, you get out there. If you don't, you got to have a little bit of fearlessness to do it, or not be super intimidated, because that was a really cool experience. And I'm not going to ever forget it. So shout out to Samantha Keeves from K-Tel. That kind of ages me a bit, but it was really neat to be able to just do that. No one taught me. I just kind of walked through it. But yeah.
You don't know the
filmmaking
connections
isn't-
you make along the way.
Yeah,
You don't.
you don't.
You really don't. So you should
crazy.
probably always act like it's a hot mic moment and watch what you
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yes.
Always act like it's a hot mic moment because you don't want to say something that's going to reduce your options in life.
Right. You shoot
Yeah.
yourself in the foot and there goes
Yeah.
your network. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
especially in cancel culture.
No,
And especially because once you put something on the internet, it's out there forever.
yeah. I just think in general, just be nice to everybody you meet. You just never know what will happen. You just never know.
Or
Oh,
if
yeah.
you get if you have a difference with them, just know how to work
Navigate it
through how to
in an
navigate.
amicable way.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Wrestling is good. You can't. No, it never came to that.
I think it's not a good idea.
If you know
But,
Krav Maga and take them down in 2 strikes, then you're good. Yeah.
Then you're gonna,
No.
you're, good,
Yeah.
you're gonna survive.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you want to
but,
come out
yeah,
on top.
You always want to go down on top. Yeah, that's great though. We have been going past an hour, so we are about to take this bad boy in for a landing. Because I do want to talk about music synchronization and licensing. I could talk about that all day because I'm I'm currently writing a script that like uses music and stuff, and it's like a big part of the story. So, and I've been
so
learning a lot
expensive.
about that and like listening to podcasts and like how directors were like, yeah, I had to spend like $300,000 on a Queen song. I'm like, oh my God, I would never use like none of the music I chose are like huge bands. These are bands who are like indie bands, and like 3 bands are from the Bay Area who 2 of them I know. So
that's what it is though, is that like
Yeah.
you start off looking. Fun Employment has music from great bands, but
Yeah,
it was because
yeah.
it started from local. They're
right.
all local people.
It's all local artists in Fun
that
Employment.
then exploded a little bit, you know. So
Right.
it's like that's how it goes. You got to start on the small, where you go to their concert and they're still selling CDs or whatever, you know, and then be like, I really like your stuff. Can I use it in something? And then stay in contact. And
Oh, yeah.
you just never know.
Yeah, I've done that too. When
Yeah.
I've listened to live music, I'm like, hey, here's my card. Can I use your piece of music in a film? But if you're going to make a film, sometimes it's worth it to buy a really well-known piece of music, because especially if you're in a festival circuit and someone remembers the music in your film, they will then remember your film. And so I bit the bullet a couple of times and paid $4 a second, but it was Whitesnake. So yeah.
Exactly. You have to bite the bullet where it's worth it. You know what I mean? And that seemed like it was very worth it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Michelle, we want you to come back. We love having you here. This was awesome. We do it via Zoom. So if you do want to call in and just like, if you have a computer and a microphone or whatever, just come in, chill out with us. Please, we would love for you to come back. So that's been the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Please, if you, I mean, come on. I need to remind you every single time, but I will remind you again. Get Reelisms
Yes.
book. Get it today. We are the Get Reelisms podcast. It's amazing. Get your film education for only $35. What? Give me a break. That's ridiculous. No, it's true. You can learn everything film. GetRealisms.com. Pick up a book, pick up a poster, pick up a t-shirt that Christine's wearing right now.
Pick
So-
up your future.
Ooh.
Pick up your future.
Michelle,
Exactly
see,
what it is.
this is business acumen. This is business brain.
This is $110,000 of business acumen
Yes.
right here.
If this was an RPG, you min max on your business acumen. You know what I mean? Like that's awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Yeah, unfortunately IG died. I tried to get back on and you weren't on it, so it's all
Well, no, because I'm not going to talk when it's just me
Yeah.
and no one can hear me. And I'm just like, yeah. And then that's all they hear and
No.
stuff. Like that's not going to happen.
No worries.
So
No,
I just
I'm trying to
ended
get
it.
back. It's okay. It's all
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Facebook. We appreciate you. And yeah, that's it.
Reelisms.
Get
Go to
Reelisms.
GetReelisms.com for everything.
GetReelisms.com.
And hook
And
them
hook
for
'em.
ET.
And
Hook 'em for you too.
do the hooks, dudes. All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye now.